Welcome to the Sci-Fi Week on Adobe Live. In honor of Star Wars Day on May 4th and 5th, all of our live streams are sci-fi themed. And check out the second week of Photoshop Creative Challenges hosted by Sam Peterson every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific. Tune in and challenge yourself with a new prompt each day. I am DTM, aka Delta Tango Mike, and today we have the amazing, talented Jesús Ramirez of PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com, and Jesús is creating a sci-fi movie poster in Photoshop. Good morning, Jesús. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Not too bad. Enjoying the good vibes. You're an awesome, talented artist, and so I'm ready to see what kind of heat you're gonna bring on Sci-Fi Week, aka Star Wars.
Yeah, so it's May 4th is tomorrow, so we definitely have a nice Star Wars theme this week, as you mentioned earlier. And I figured I would create a poster, a movie poster based on one of the Star Wars movies, one of my favorite Star Wars movies, which is Rogue One. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I think it's one of the best. And I don't know if you guys can see my screen, but I guess I can talk a little bit about it before we get started.
Yes.
Cool. So if you guys can see my screen, then you'll see that this is going to be the final product. Hopefully we can get through it in the next 2 hours. But as you can see, it's titled Rogue 2. I'm trying to avoid copyright infringements here.
Gotcha.
And I guess I should mention a little fun fact about Rogue One. So this is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. It's a movie from 2016. Again, one of my favorites.
Yes.
But the fun thing about this movie, it was created, or the story is by John Knoll. I don't know if people in the chat know who John Knoll is. If you do, let us know in the chat. But John Knoll is this gentleman right here. And he and his brother created a little application that you guys might know, Photoshop, in 1987. So John and Thomas Snow created Photoshop in 1987. I believe Adobe bought it in 89 or 1990, something like that. Ooh. So imagine having these kind of projects on your resume. Photoshop, Star Wars, just, I'm jealous of his LinkedIn page. Let's just put it that way.
I was gonna say that's my dream. That's
right.
Yes. Go ahead.
And so this website is called IMP Awards. So you can find any movie poster ever made, TV movie poster, and this is what I used as a sort of inspiration for this particular piece. Oh, that's weird. Let me try that again. Give me 1 second. Sorry.
Well, while we're getting this together, anybody who's on the chat, welcome to Behance. Drop us your location. Tell us where you're watching this from right now, because we want to know how far and wide people are going to hear today's Photoshop demo with Jesús. There we go. There it is.
It looks like I wasn't sharing it. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, this is Star Wars Rogue One, and this is the guy I was talking about, John Knoll. That's what he looks like. I'll go back. That's him. He and his brother, as I mentioned earlier, created Photoshop in 1987 and sold it to Adobe in 1990. And this is the website that I was referring to, called IMP Awards, where you can find pretty much any movie poster or TV poster. And this is the website where I looked up the Rogue One movie so that I could get some inspiration for the poster that we're going to recreate today. So as you can see, it's almost like Star Wars at a beach resort, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's so anyway, just a little bit about me in case you don't know me. I run a website or a YouTube channel called Photoshop Training Channel, Photoshop Tutorials. You can check it out. Just look for Photoshop Training Channel on YouTube and you'll find me there. I've been a professional graphic artist for almost 20 years now. I feel so old saying that. Most recently, I started working in the movie industry. I've been creating posters, doing finishing work for a company called BLT, which works with clients such as HBO, Netflix, things like that. My most recent piece is for the show Hacks. I've never seen it, but I was one of the artists who worked on this poster, as well as the widescreen version for HBO. I've also worked with my good friend Lisa Carney on this poster for Good Sam for CBS. If you don't know Lisa, she's a previous Adobe Live streamer, and she's amazing. So make sure you check her out, lisacarney.com, and you can see her work. She's amazing. She's worked with Marvel and does amazing work. I'm going to get right into Photoshop in just a moment. I just want to point out that if you see any Star Wars related asset in the project that we're going to work with today, it came from pixelsquid.com. So you can check out Pixel Squid and download some of the free assets. Basically, the way this works is you can click on a 3D model, and you can rotate around the model and then download that particular view and apply it to your composite. So I'm not going to come back into Pixel Squid, but all the Star Wars related models came through here, except for the Jedi, which is an Adobe Stock image, which we'll talk about in a moment. So this is the final piece. And as I mentioned earlier, I've been working a lot with studios creating posters. So the way that I'm actually building these files, they're a little different just because I have that workflow in mind. So everything is labeled, everything is modularized. So you can quickly, take pieces out and put them in and rearrange them. And something that is very, very important when you're working on that type of production environment is that everything needs to be labeled. And one of the things that I did out of habit while working with Lisa is not only naming the layers, but naming the blend mode that it's using and the opacity, because after the file leaves your hands, another artist may need to update it or work with the file in a certain way. So everything needs to be organized, and everybody needs to know, everybody needs to be on the same page. So I guess the first little tip that I'll show today is that to save a little time in that process, when I create a new layer, right away I apply this action that I made, which in my case is Shift and the F12 key, to name the layer, to apply that name to a layer. And if it's a different blend mode, I can just change it to like multiply or whatever the blending mode is, just so I can stay organized. In case you don't know how to do that, it's not a big deal at all. All you need to do is go into Window, Actions, click on this little record button here, and then you can just name the layer whatever you want. So I'll call this layer Adobe Live. Adobe Live, there it is. I can stop. Oops, sorry about that. I did it too fast and wrong. I need to create a new action first and call this action Adobe Live. Hit record, and now it's recording this Adobe Live action. You can name a layer. I'll call it Adobe Live layer. Stop it. Oh, and stop it. And something that I didn't do earlier was assign it a keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to double click on it, and you can assign a keyboard shortcut to it. So what I did is I added a function key and then the Shift key. So I'll do Shift F3, press OK. So now when I create a new layer, it's layer 6. But if I press Shift and F3, it'll name the layer to what we to what we set it on this action. But that is just one of the workflow techniques that I've learned while working on this type of work. But anyway, so let's jump right into it. And I'm not going to name layers just because I want to save time, but I just wanted to point that out, that working in this environment requires you to be really, really organized, and everything needs to be in its place, and people need to know what's going on. But let's jump right into it. So I already took the liberty of starting with a document that is 2026 by 3000 pixels. There it is. And I've already added this line right here, this guide, which is just my horizon line, just because I want to have a similar horizon line. That way I can just place everything in its place. I believe that setting your horizon line right from the beginning just really helps you visualize things and get started. Ideally, you want to have a sketch. In this case, I don't really have a sketch. I just have this finished product. So I'm just going to keep referencing the product, the final piece. And what I like to do is I like to start with the background and then move to the foreground. So let's do that. Let's just start dragging in layers and arranging things. So I have this Adobe Stock image. I mentioned that a lot of these actually all of these images are Adobe Stock, except for the 3D models here, the Stormtroopers, the Death Star, the Imperial Walkers, all those are 3D models. And if you want to find out which, I guess I should at least show you guys. That's the number there. I don't know if you can see it, but if you want to find that same Adobe Stock image, there it is. And what I like to do is just start by, just kind of placing this into position. You can see the horizon line right here on this image. So I kind of like to match the horizon line so everything stays in perspective. Here's the trick for you guys. If you press Control-T, Command-T to transform, you will not see the pivot point. For some reason, Adobe in their infinite wisdom, they decided to turn this off by default about 4 years ago. So I always click on it to turn it back on. But what that allows you to do is to enable this thing that I call the pivot point, but Photoshop calls it the reference point. And what it allows you to do is to rotate or pivot from this point. So if I put it here, it rotates from there.
Right.
And what I like to do is I like to place this on the horizon line. Anywhere in the horizon line is fine. And you can just hold Alt on Windows. Depending on your settings, you may have to hold Shift to keep it constrained. But now you're scaling in perspective. See that? You're scaling in perspective. So now I can decide the scale of that beach. So I'll place it somewhere along there, like so.
Got it.
I'm going to use a different sky for my image. So I'm just going to remove the sky. And one of the easiest ways of doing that is by going into the select menu. And from here, I can select sky. Photoshop will use artificial intelligence known as Adobe Sensei to analyze the image and create a selection around the sky. But if I create a layer mask at the moment, it'll hide the foreground. And I don't want to do that. Instead, I'm going to hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to create an inverted mask. So that creates, that selects the foreground, but removes the sky, which is what we want. And then in the background, we're just gonna, add a little whatever sky we want later. So I'm just gonna keep it like this for now, just so I can visualize more what we're doing. And now I have a habit of saving as I'm working because I don't want Photoshop to crash and lose my work. So you'll see me saving often. That's a pro tip right there. Save as often as you can.
Yes. It's a muscle memory. It should be muscle memory.
Muscle memory.
That's it. Boom. Get it.
Definitely. And let me know if there's any questions in the chat, DMT. I'll be happy to answer them. I'm kind of looking at the chat now and I see some familiar faces. Hey, Sean, how's it going? I see you. Mia, awesome. Cool. Thanks so much for joining me, guys.
Kiss My Creator says, now I'm hungry. So are you feeding people too, or just that kind of question, Kiss My Creator? Thank you. Awesome.
Cool. So let's see, what are we going to bring up next? Let's bring in the sky. Why not? So I have this clear blue sky from Adobe Stock as well. And I'm just going to drag this into my canvas and I'm going to drag this up. I know where my horizon line is, and whoever uploaded this Adobe Stock image just cut the image right at the horizon line. So I can just place this right on the line and then scale it up accordingly. And you can go up a little bit higher if you want. You don't have to be right on the line.
Right.
And then again, since I like to work fast, I rarely drag layers down like that. I'd rather use the keyboard shortcut. So Control and the right bracket key on Windows to drag a layer. Control and the left bracket key to bring a layer down. Control and the right bracket key to bring a layer up. The bracket key is to the left of the letter P in North American keyboards. And here's another cool trick. If you hold Shift and use that keyboard shortcut, so Control Shift right bracket, it'll jump the layer to the top of the layer stack. Control Shift left bracket, it'll jump it down to the bottom of the layer stack. So this is how I like to move my layers, just because it's so much faster than clicking and dragging. Also, when I'm really working, I have two monitors, so it takes a long time to go to the other monitor, drag a layer, and then come back to your working composition. You'll often see me double click on the hand tool because a hand tool fits the image to screen. You can see the entire canvas. Now that I have the this basic plane set, I don't need the horizon line visible is just distracting me now. So I'm going to disable it. You can disable a guide by pressing Control and semicolon, and that gets rid of the guide. Some people use Control H, which hides all extras. That can work, but the downside of doing Control H as opposed to Control semicolon is that Control H hides all other guides. All other extras, not just guides. Yeah. So I like to be specific about what I'm hiding. So I want to hide the guides, Control semicolon. That's Command in the Mac, by the way. Cool.
Oh, that's lots of tips. Keep track of them. Yeah. Make sure you come back and watch the replay in slow motion so that you can remember all these tips. These are awesome tips. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, DMT. Cool. So now that I have my sky, I guess we can work on the beach here. So I'm going to click and drag this layer up. And, I don't know how I'm going to change my mind. We might not follow the original exactly, but it's a good guide. So maybe this is really what I want to keep here. And I'm going to come and bring this up right about here. And then we kind of have to blend these two together somehow. So we'll figure that out as we go. And that looks pretty good. So in this case, I like this water a lot better than the one on top. So maybe I can do some Photoshop magic to try to match them. So what I'll do is I'll create a curves adjustment layer, click on this icon to clip it to the layer below. Clipping simply means that the layer below will control the visibility of the layer on top. In the case of an adjustment layer, the adjustment layer will only control the layer below, and that's what this little down pointing arrow indicates. So when I make an adjustment, it only affects that layer, and I can already see I made a mistake. I didn't put the beach right where it should be, and I think it's a problem with the layer mask. If you hold Alt on Windows, Option in the mask, and click, you can see the layer mask. And look, I didn't make it all the way to the edge, so now I can just drag it over, and that should work.
Some good eyeballs.
There we go.
Used to this. Yes, good.
Definitely. So let's see, what can I do here? First of all, it needs to be a little bit brighter. So I'm going to click and drag this up. It's got too much green, so maybe I'll reduce the green. And I'm just eyeballing it here, so I don't really know if it's going to work. I'm going to add some cyan by reducing red and maybe add blue. Click and drag up. So that looks pretty okay. I'm not 100% in love with it, but let me see. I think my issue is that it's too dark still. There we go. So I'm just trying to get the water to be as close as possible. Something like this. And, you don't have to get it right the first time. You can come back and make adjustments later. And I think that's going to be good for now. The water's very close. It's very blue on top here, so I'm probably going to hide that. And I created a layer mask earlier, so I can select that layer mask there. And I have a Wacom tablet. You don't necessarily need one, but it just makes it easier to draw instead of using the mouse. And I can click on this icon here to enable pressure sensitivity for opacity. And I can sort of blend that in. And you can see that as soon as I start blending it in, it matches kind of. And I can come back in there and make adjustments, right? I'm not stuck with that. So
that was gonna be my suggestion, because I'm an artist who draws. I'm a drawer. I love drawing. And so anything that I can do with the pen and blend things in, that's my go-to.
Definitely.
So that's beautiful right there. Beautiful.
Yeah. So now I have a curves adjustment layer clipped to the beach layer. And now I'm darkening that up to kind of, try to get it to match. And there we go. And I think that looks pretty good for what we have. And obviously you can always come back and make changes to it. Another thing that I've started doing recently, just by working with these studios, is a layer mask that has nothing in it. I'm just deleting it now because I don't want to confuse people. A lot of people see the PSCs that I create. So if there's a layer mask in there, you run the risk of someone accidentally painting something on it. And it also lets people know that this adjustment layer is doing a global adjustment and it's not targeted to anything. So that's another habit I got into. Let's see. Let me continue here. I'm now trying to visualize what I'm going to do next. I'm probably going to work on the sand now. So I'm going to go into my libraries panel and I'm just going to drag this sand down. And actually, you know what? Something I should mention now before we go any further is I mentioned that these are Adobe Stock images. So if you go into stock.adobe.com, you can obviously download a lot of these images, and there is a paid subscription, but there's also a free option. So if you click on this drop down and go to free, you can just type on the word sand, for example, and see what comes up, and then you can use these elements for your composites. So you might be able to find something that works for you here. Not all the images that I'm using today are free, some are. So you can find alternatives just by coming onto this page, for example, like beach or something like that for the other scene,
Oh, look at that. Nice.
And the way this works is that you simply click on the little, you can license it right off the bat if you want, or you can click on the little heart icon and it goes into your Creative Cloud library and you can just drag it into your working composition. But now let's place this here. Let me see. So what I'll do is I'll probably just blend these two together. I'm not sure how you let's see. I mean, I already did it once, but it doesn't matter. Like I still forget.
And you always have new ideas, even after when you revisit something. Your creative mind just keeps rolling around. It's like, let me try something different this time around, just to see what we get. Yeah, we're not machines.
100%. Now I have the so let me show you guys something. So the reason I did this, so if you just click on the layer mask icon like so, you'll create a white mask, right? So white reveals everything. And if I were to fill that with black, that's not really the same thing as creating a black mask to begin with, because with the move tool, when I click and drag, you can now see that I have just like this weird white box thing that doesn't really work. So another habit that I got into is, instead of just starting with a white mask and then paint with black, I actually like to start with a black mask, because, and you hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon, because it's an infinite black mask. See, I'm dragging and it's infinitely black.
Oh, okay. I see.
See?
Yeah.
So that I prefer that, because then when I paint, I can just selectively paint on the areas that I want to reveal. And if for whatever reason I need to make my canvas larger or whatever, like the mask will be completely black outside of those bounds, as opposed to just have a harsh, white line.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
beautiful. And the black mask is Darth Vader's mask. The dark side is the best side.
It's on your left side, right?
That's right. That's right. There you go. Don't forget it. We got the dark side on this side over here. Nice. Look at that.
Painting that in. And I'm not liking the scale so much, so I probably will come in and change it, and but I don't have to worry about that right now. I'm just laying it all out. And I'm going to create another curves adjustment layer. And by the way, I've been using curves, but you can use levels if you want. So levels is a lot easier to understand. You can just, set how dark the darkest pixel would be with this slider. So this slider is telling Photoshop that the pixels on this layer will not be darker than the shade of gray. And this slider tells Photoshop that the pixels on this layer will not be brighter than the shade of gray. So you can determine how dark or how bright the darkest pixels are. And then you can just adjust your gamma with this slider and, just adjust it accordingly. And, you can use curves if you prefer. It's whatever works, right? There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm still unhappy with that sand, but what's wrong with it? I think I can spend hours manipulating this sand, so we'll just come back to it.
Sure.
But what we'll do is we'll just put all these layers into one group, just so that we stay organized, and I can just call this background.
Yes. And that's cool. In the beginning, sometimes you just want to throw things in there.
Yeah.
So that you can let your creative mind start to see things. Yeah. Yes. Give yourself time.
Yeah, definitely. So, the perspective is a little off, but that's okay. Like I said, now that everything is laid out, as you mentioned, you can come back and you can make changes. So as you said, DMT, we're not stuck with what we have. So this is, like, as you can see in this image, I spent a lot more time working on the perspective and getting it right. So obviously I'm not gonna do it right off the bat while I'm talking.
Right.
But it's good enough. Why don't we work with by adding some of these Imperial Walkers? Why not? So I'm just gonna click and drag one of these guys in here, and I'm just gonna scale him up. Probably.
Ooh.
Actually, it looks kind of nicer if it's bigger. I had it smaller. I don't know if I should keep it. What do you guys think? Should I leave it this
What
big?
do you guys say in the chat? Bigger, smaller? I vote for bigger.
All right. By the way, here's a tip. I mentioned that earlier about how you can scale in perspective by dragging the reference point. Another thing that you can do is you see this little box here. I can click on it, and the reference point moves to those specific corners of the bounding box. So if I click the center bottom one, hold Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, while holding the Shift key, and you can scale that. See that? Now we have a little tiny one, really, really big one. And the reason that it looks in perspective is because I kind of, match the perspective to begin with.
Yeah.
So you said big, right?
Yes. Bigger, big, General, Kenobi, Frank, Sean, Kiss My Creative. Everybody's saying big. That's right. And
awesome.
Somebody said, make it fall in the ocean with a big splash and a mini tsunami. Noor. Okay.
I don't know if we have time for photoshopping a mini tsunami.
Yeah, we need a month tsunami. Long. We need a month of sci-fi.
One of the things that I like to keep my eye out on is that the lighting is not matching the composite. The lighting's actually coming from the other side. And by the way, a lot of times if you look at like professional movie posters, even some that I've done, the lighting doesn't match. And that's not because the artist doesn't know or didn't catch it. That's usually because that's how the client wants it. So yeah. So in some of the posters I've showed you, even today, there's some lighting issues, and that's how they want it. So the person signing the checks is who's in charge.
Yeah, I got stories. I got plenty of those stories.
Yeah, there you go.
When we do freelance work, yes. But this is beautiful. We'll forgive all of the lighting issues here because this is awesome already.
Thank you. So the tip that I mentioned earlier, remember the keyboard shortcut control left bracket key? So I'm just going to move it down in the layer stack until it appears behind the palm trees. There you go. So now it's behind the palm trees. Here's a cool trick to create depth in an image. Photoshop, even though it has, or used to have at least 3D, Photoshop at the end of the day, it's 2D imaging platform. We're not really creating any depth. We're just putting things on top of each other. So we have to create the illusion of depth. Much like an artist with a canvas and painting, they have to create the illusion of depth. One of the things that creates depth in an image is something called atmospheric perspective. So if you ever look out, like I live in California, so there's mountains all over the place. So if I look out my window now, I'll see mountains, and usually they're not sharp and have high contrast. Instead, they have lower contrast, and they begin to take the color of the sky. In the daytime, they tend to look blue. On sunset and sunrise, and they tend to look a little orange because that's what color of the sky is. So in order to make it seem like this Imperial Walker is way off into the distance, or we need to create some of the illusion of depth. There's going to be particles between the viewer and this object, so it won't be completely sharp and have high contrast. There could be mist, smoke, fog, who knows, a bunch of different particles between the viewer and the Imperial Walker. So a quick and easy trick to make it seem like something is far away is to double click on the layer and apply a color overlay and set it to the screen blending mode, which already is. Or actually, no, set it to normal, and then change set the blending mode, the color to whatever the sky is. That color works. And then just reduce the opacity. And you can see that just by doing something like this, it's already starting to look like it's really here. Not necessarily like this is the after. See the difference?
Yes. Yeah.
And also
it's got some distance. If you feel like distance now, like there's distance. That's right.
Exactly. And if you want, you could also add, since I'm working with a smart object, I'm not going to create an adjustment layer. You can go into image adjustments, and I'll create a levels adjustment layer, and I'll just make sure that I move this one over to the right and this one over to the left, just to create less contrast and more heavily imply that distance. And it appears here under effects. See that? Levels, there it is. So it looks pretty good, I would say. And I can just move this anywhere I want. I like the position where I had it before, so that's where I'll leave it.
Yeah.
Since we're working with these Imperial walkers, I might as well add the second one, and I'll add it here. Bring it up. I'll use that same trick. Click on this icon here, set the reference point to the center, Shift, Alt, click and drag on the corner handle, and maybe we'll move this one back and make it seem like this one's further off in the distance, and I will also move it horizontally. And this one's just getting here. It's not quite as close yet. And to save some time, I'm going to do the same trick I used for the atmospheric perspective, but I don't want to redo it. So you can just hold Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, click on this FX icon and drag it, drop it, and there it is.
Yeah.
And since this one's further away, I may even increase the opacity because there's more atmosphere, more particles between us and it. And I can also go into image adjustment levels and adjust the contrast as well.
Yeah.
Whatever works to your eye, something like that. So now we have two Imperial walkers coming towards us, and I'm gonna save this file. As I mentioned before, I have such a habit of saving these things. So I'm just gonna group them together, stay organized. Imperial walkers. That's what they're called, right? Imperial walkers. By the way, I know we were talking to Paco before we started the stream. I like Star Wars. I've seen all the movies, but I'm not really big into the mythology. So I already know that I have things that are wrong in terms of like, wait a minute, that's whatever Imperial walker, it shouldn't be there. So please excuse those errors. I just don't know much about the actual mythology, even though I've seen all the movies.
Yes, AT-AT walker, all-terrain armored transport.
There we go.
That's what they're called.
Okay. So it sounds like you are. Like you're into the mythology.
I tend to look things up sometimes.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's how I am with Marvel stuff, but definitely not Star Wars. And by the way, I just see in the chat that Micah Burke said needs a Death Star on the horizon. That's what I'm doing, Mike. I'm about to add one now.
Yeah, right on time. And anybody else watching this, including me, says I'm writing like mad. Jesus moves fast. Yes, please make sure you rewatch this session later to catch all the tips, because Jesus is creating a sci-fi movie poster in Photoshop, and some of these tips are just amazing. They will help you move faster through any design. And there's some things that I didn't even touch on. I don't even know about Photoshop. I'm mostly an Illustrator guy, but it's amazing what Photoshop can do, what you can do with Photoshop. So go ahead and make sure you watch this later.
Yeah, I see a question. Are the golden ratio and rule of thirds often used for movie posters? I don't know if I should say yes or no. The answer is yeah, that's taken into consideration, but it's not a rule. But yeah, it's definitely used. So just while I work on the Death Star, I'm just gonna disable this, and now I kind of gotta blend it to the background. So I think what I will do, and I guess I'll use that same technique. I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work. So what I'll do is I'll copy the effects from that layer on there. And also, since it's further away, it probably shouldn't be so visible. I'm trying to figure out what layers I'm going to turn off so that I can see better. So since it's so far away, it wouldn't be so visible. So maybe I can add more of the color overlay like so. And I'll add a layer mask, and with that mask I'll use this what is it called, the gradient tool. Click and drag to the other way, do something like that.
Yes. Oh yeah, because I was gonna ask if we ever turn down the opacity on the Death Star at all. And that's great, because now we can see those clouds. And you think the Death Star, of course, is supposed to be outside of the atmosphere. So you will see those clouds. That's good.
Yeah. And what I'm going to do, just for funsies, I'm going to create a group. I'm going to call it Death Star. And I'm going to drag this layer in there like so. There it is inside of it. And the reason I did that is because I may add more adjustment layers and other elements to this layer. So like, for example, like just so you can see what I'm talking about, I'm going to add another adjustment layer, and I'm just going to clip it to a layer below. And I don't necessarily want to do this, but this is just for the example. So like I made an adjustment, right? And that's why I wanted to have everything in the group. But then I can go to the side of the group, double click on it. It brings up the layer style window. And from here, I have the blend diff options. And I already know that in the chat, Micah knows what I'm about to do. I was just at a conference. I think he mentioned it earlier. The Russell Brown Rock Reunion, I think it was called, by Adobe, sponsored by Adobe. Russell Brown is an Adobe employee. Maybe Micah knows, but he's like Adobe employee number 8 or something crazy like that. But I showed on my session, I talked about blend diff. But what blend diff allows you to do is either hide pixels that have a certain darkness value or bring up pixels from underlying layers that have a certain brightness value. So from the underlying layer slider, I'm going to drag this white point to the left and see how it just brings the clouds through. Wow. So what I'm doing is I'm just creating it so that the clouds come through because it wouldn't, you're gonna,
because it's not gonna be just very clean clouds sitting out there. It's gotta have that atmosphere, blocking your view the further down in the horizon you get. Very awesome. Frank was suggesting a blur, and but this is I like this right here. So it's a good eye. So usually what I do at the very end is I go in and add all the blurs and all that stuff. So that's definitely coming. As you can see, these are blurry, the final ones. Because I mean, if you were shooting this one at an actual camera, your main subject will be in focus. In this case, the Jedi. By the way, what should we name this Jedi? We'll look for names in the chat. But anyway, so I usually leave the blurring to the very end just because, like there's no need of doing that now. I just want to lay out my design first and then be able to move things around if I need to. Like so. But anyway, and I'm not happy with let me redo a couple of things. I'm not happy with a couple of things I did here. So I don't think I want to make that adjustment there, and maybe I can. So I just unlinked the mask from the layer so that I can move the mask independently from the layer and maybe even adjust it more. I'm just not happy with the way it's blending at the moment. Yeah, you're a big time pro, so you can see all these little things. For me, I'll be done. I'm like, here it is, your poster's complete. Looking awesome. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I like you just learn how to see these things. So I don't know. I'm happy with it. So I'm just trying to like figure out like what I can do to make it work even better. So maybe something like that. And it's it's far away, so it shouldn't be too visible. And there's like a lot of like stuff in between. Anyway, and we can keep working on it more. Another thing I might do is just go into filter, blur, and blur that mask.
There you go. Mia is asking for noise. Thank you everybody in the chat for your suggestions. Got Frank, Mia, Gordon, General Kenobi, Micah, Noor. Everybody is throwing ideas out there. Thank you very much. Robert, Felipe, Jorge, thank you all. And of course, Wade, thank you for keeping the chat organized and helping us out during the stream. Appreciate you.
So I think Frank is is it Frank? Oh no, Mia. I think Mia said, have we added noise yet, with a little wink. I think Mia knows that I add noise to all my images. See how there's a lot of noise? That's just my thing. And the reason I do that is because, like, especially if you blur something, like you're like, let me show you what I mean by that with like a different photo. We'll use, I guess we'll use, I don't know, we'll use this image. So if this was my background, right? And if I go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and, blur it and I'm blurring it because it's, depth of field or whatever. This to me looks very computer generated, very fake. Everything is so smooth. So if you're actually shooting a photo, even though you have a blurry background, there would be noise. So this doesn't look good to me. It looks very fake. So what I like to do is go into filter, camera raw filter, and just crank up the noise just enough so that you can see it. So what I like to do is go into the effects panel. Here it is. It's already open. And I can just go into grain and add just a little tiny bit, not a lot, just enough so that there's something there and it doesn't feel so fake. So I think that's what Mia is referencing But yeah, I definitely will do that at the end. As you can see, there's definitely some noise in there. Cool. And also,
anytime you add the noise filters to your photographs or work or posters, make sure you play that Beastie Boys song, Make Some Noise. Yeah. That's the soundtrack for that.
Awesome. That's a good one. Also, I think Mia asked, was it Mia? Question for Jesus: what's the toughest poster you've ever done? I haven't done too many for, now that I'm working with this company, but I guess the latest one, the one I just showed you, was actually a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. This one, actually, this version of it was easier. The harder one was this version, because so what happens is the client approves like a certain portion of the poster, and then you're free to create, the other side, like the extension. But the images that I had didn't give me a lot of information to like, copy and clone and do all that. So it's actually a lot more difficult than it looks. Okay. The road was particularly difficult to get right. And I mean, I'm already looking at a bunch of mistakes looking at this, but yeah, this is a very difficult one, even though it seems easy, just because a lot of times the assets that you have are not necessarily the best, or they don't give you the information that you need. That's a better way of saying it. So in that regard, even though it looks like a simple poster, it's actually more difficult than it seems.
Yeah, later on you're tasked with creating the rest of the world.
Yeah, exactly. We need another 400% on either side.
Yeah.
All right, so we got the Imperial Walkers. Let me see Imperial. Okay, so I'll show you guys something interesting. So because I wanted to have a line of like stormtroopers just on the beach, hanging out. So I thought, what would be the fastest way of just getting one of these guys and just lining them up like along the side, and then of course you can hold Alt, like the Alt key on Windows, the option on the Mac, and oops, sorry about that, wrong key selected. With the move tool, you can hold Alt, and then you can kind of like do this, right? And, and even though that's cool, I feel like that would take too long and doesn't give me the flexibility that I want. So I came up with an idea, and it kind of works. I'll show it to you guys. So I'm just going to open up the Stormtrooper. There it is. And I'm going to go into the edit menu and choose define pattern. So now I have a pattern, and I can call it Stormtrooper. And I have a pattern of stormtroopers, right? And what that allows you to do is, create a pattern, but you can change the scale, right? So, so we have a whole bunch of guys, right? But that's not it. That kind of works, but there's another thing that you can do. So you can come into the pen tool here, and then you can make sure you have a path, and you can click here and then hold shift and click there. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll like not keep it perfectly straight, just kind of like rotate it a little bit, and hopefully I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll see. The one that I did before, I actually did it with a straight path, and I thought, I don't like it with a straight path, so I figured during the stream I might try to curve the path. Anyway, so with the curved path selected here, I can go into edit and fill. Oops, I need to create a new layer first. New layer, right? There it is. Edit and fill, or if you want to be super fancy, you can just hold shift and backspace, and that brings up the fill window. And then you can go into the pattern option here. Under custom pattern, select the stormtrooper that you just made. There it is. There's my stormtrooper. And then make sure you check this box, script, and then select place along path and press OK. And this will come up. And I know it looks crazy, and it's not what the previous terrible. But notice that my scale is set to 0.1, basically 10% of that original size. So a scale of 1 would be the same size as the pattern. So I made it 0.1. I reduced the spacing so that the stormtroopers could be closer to each other. So 120 pixels in this case. And this is all trial and error, by the way. It's not like I figure out these numbers and it worked. So then, these are the two real numbers that you need to focus on. The other ones are fine by default. Oh, the only one that I changed as well is the brightness randomness. I'll maybe you increase it more so that they're all not the same brightness. And I'm glad that error happened, because when that error happens, I don't know why it happens, but it happens sometimes. You press OK, nothing happens. And you're like, oh my God, Photoshop doesn't work. Well, I don't know why that error happens, but if it happens, what you need to do is go back. So shift, backspace, and everything's going to be with the same settings you had before. Press OK. The same settings are going to come up. Press OK again. And there they are.
Boom.
There's my stormtroopers
Wow.
in a line. Now,
Yes.
unfortunately, they're not the scale that I want. So I'm just going to press, let me just get rid of this path because I don't need it anymore. So Control T, Command T to transform. I'm going to scale these guys down right about where I want them to be, about that big, give or take. And then I will do that trick with the old key. But now
duplicate.
But the reason that this is better, or at least faster, is that, you know, they're not all exactly like in a perfect line. They're kind of wavy now. So some are higher, some are lower. I'm going to press, I'm going to duplicate this again so I can fill the entire area here. So I'm going to zoom in, just make sure that I align them properly. And I'm using the arrow keys now so that it matches, something like that. Now that I have all these layers, I can hold Shift, click on all three, Control E on Windows, Command E on the Mac to merge. And there it is. There's all these guys standing on a line here. I can call them Stormtrooper line, and I'll convert this into a smart object because later, and I guess I'll do it now, we're going to blur it, right? If they're that far away, they wouldn't be that sharp. So filter, actually, before I blur it, I wanted to do one other thing. I'm going to double click to the side of the layer, click on bevel and emboss, and notice the angle here. I'm just going to move it over to the right side. I don't really need a strong shadow, or maybe I do. I don't know. What do you guys think? Shadow? Now that I see the shadow, I kind of like so shadow. And we have a highlight. See the highlight hitting them because that's where the light's coming from. So before and after, it just gives it a little more depth, you know. And I think that looks pretty good. We'll press OK. And then now I guess I'll blur it. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and you know, the blur could be
just a touch. That's
and we'll figure it out later, right? Because the background's still sharp, so this really doesn't make any sense at the moment. But you guys know where we're going. So now we have the stormtroopers on the beach back there, and
Daniel says they have the perfect outfits for the beach.
Right? Well, they're not going to get any sunburns.
No, that's right. They protect it. All ready for the aqua gym lesson, says Noor. Thank you. It's funny. Yes, this is very cool.
Let's see what else. All right, so I guess and then I had this ship too, I think, in the final one, so I might as well just drop it in there and then just copy one of these. Where are they? Oh, I guess I'll put it down here. So let me just come down. This is the only time I drag and drop when I'm like looking for something, and I guess I'll put it here with the Imperial Walkers, and I'll copy the effects. There they are. And I guess this one's closer, or no, it'll be further, right? Because it's super big.
Right? Well, yeah, but they'll be closer than the Death Star.
Right, closer than the Death Star for sure.
But further away than the AT-AT Walker.
All right, we'll call that good. And we can change it later, of course, and then we can move it anywhere we want. But for now, that's good. So what I'll do is I'll take this ship, and you guys will tell me what that ship is called, and I'll put it into a group, and I'll just call this like far away enemies or something like that. So then that way it's all in one group, and we know how to get to it. I guess it's time to work on the Jedi. So I'll save this so that we don't lose it, and I'll double click on this Adobe Stock image. And what I'll do is I'll mask her out here, and then I'll drag the result onto the document that we're working with. So there's a lot of ways to make selections in Photoshop. I usually just start by going into select, subject, check out the selection, see if it's any good. In this case, it's not bad. There's a couple issues. I'll keep the lightsaber for now, but I'm going to hide it later. So I just have the polygonal lasso tool.
To add that back into the selection.
Yeah.
Yes.
There we go. And I don't like this part of the cape coming through, so I'm just going to remove it from the selection. Like so.
Yep. And Micah added into chat, this is a Star Destroyer. Yes. And that in someone, let me see who said that that's the wrong kind of stormtroopers. You would have, I think you would have the troopers that are around the sand. I don't think they're called sand troopers, but there's something. They have different kind of stormtroopers. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
All right.
That
So
was good.
now with this selection active, sometimes what I like to do is press the Q key to see the quick mask, and everything in red is not selected. And it kind of allows you to see like little mistakes. So like, you know, I kind of want to add that to my selections. And that was I did a terrible job. Instead of doing that, I'm just going to paint. And I'm just going to paint with black to hide with a layer mask, black hides and white reveals. So I'm painting with black to hide these pixels. This overlay will show them in red. And I'm going to paint with white here to reveal the pixels that are going to be hidden. Notice that there was some red on that lightsaber. Cool. Nice. Did we get any names for the character yet?
Okay, so we're looking for names for this character. This is a Jedi character, right?
Yeah.
And they're at the character's at the beach, ready to face off against a beach full of stormtroopers, a Star Destroyer, and the Death Star. So we are looking for names for this character. Only Imperial Stormtroopers are so precise. Okay, beachwear troopers. Well, that we have a name for the for the Stormtroopers, and they need some Hawaiian shirts. And
they definitely do.
That's right.
I need a margarita.
There you go. Oh,
feel free to send margaritas to my place. We should do like a margarita day instead of like, you know, like Star Wars day.
That's right. Yes. And you know, I think I missed the call for taco illustrations, because for the past couple of weeks on Behance, I've seen nothing but tacos illustrations. Wow. And I'm like, when did somebody say something? Because I didn't hear about it. So otherwise, I would have made some taco drawings. And there you go, tacos and margaritas.
There we go. So you can press the Q key to come back into the selection. And when I have a selection that I like, I can click on the layer mask icon to create a selection. And just to see how things look, I'm just going to create a gray solid. And everything's looking pretty okay. There's a couple issues here. So I'm going to be a little lazy and see if it works. With the layer mask selected, I can go into filter, other minimum. The minimum filter contracts the mask. I like to set it to roundness because it gives me decimal points. Squareness only gives me whole numbers. Roundness gives me decimal points. So I can fine tune the selection more. So you can see that this, you know, shrinks the mask. And what I'm really trying to do is get rid of these white outlines, this fringing. So I don't know. I'm just going to drag it until I don't see it anymore. It might be difficult to get rid of these here. So I'm not going to go too far, and I'll press OK. And overall, this looks pretty good. That zipper is just, not really working. So what I need to do is just come in here and just fix this. And to fix something like this, what I do is I just paint with white. And I know it looks terrible now, but that's okay. And I just want to be able to see it. There we go. And now that I know exactly where I need to mask, I can, you know, spend a little more time.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm going quickly here. I would probably spend more time making sure that it works. And in a lot of cases, to be frank with you, something like this, I might just not even mask. I'll just mask it out completely.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to chop that off. I'm going to cut that off. But like, I don't need to see it. Nobody needs to know that's there.
And a lot of times, you know, like it looks fine or whatever, but other times I think it kind of helps sell the illusion that it's real, you know, because you see these little imperfections, you know. That was one of my issues with, even though I'm a big fan of the new Spider-Man with Tom Holland, my issue is that the suit looks too perfect. I like the Andrew Garfield version that kind of, you know, you can see the folds and the wrinkles, and to me that looks better. Yeah. Gives you more realistic look.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Behance. If you're watching this on YouTube, please come on through to behance.net/live, where Jesús Ramirez is sharing some Photoshop tips and tricks in creating a sci-fi movie poster. And if you're watching this on the replay, let us know what you think about it. If you want to see Jesus come back and share more, because he is full of knowledge, and just watching this right here is magical, as everybody in the chat is letting us know now. we do have some names. Micah says Jin Drinko. Daryl says the name for this Jedi, his name is Bob. Purva.
All right, Bob is on top.
Is that right? That one right now is the best name idea right at the moment. Crystal says Sandbar Jedi. Purva is saying Eliak. And then General Kenobi says Mara Ruby. Matthew Roberts is saying X Zeus. And then Wade says, why not all of these things? It's got lots of long names. And we were mentioning this earlier. Before the show, you are Mexican, Jesus, right?
I am.
And so I mentioned this earlier that we're Mexican, but my mother used to say, if you were not born in Mexico, you're not Mexican. And I was born in LA, so I'm technically a Chicano. And so when the friends that I had, they had like 5 names, and my mother only gave me 2 names, first name and last name, and that was it. So I think this Stormtrooper or this Jedi could be like that, where it's got like 10 names, all of them together.
Well, what I was thinking about is like, I'm not gonna be able to recite it, but in Game of Thrones, Khaleesi had like a paragraph worth the names. Mother of Dragons is the only one I can remember. So just so that I mentioned what I did here, so I turned the selection into a layer mask, and I kind of cleaned it up a bit to, just to try to get a good selection here. And then I converted that into a smart object, so that I can work non-destructively. And if I need to edit the mask, I can always double click on that smart object and edit it. So I'm just gonna take this Jedi here and drop her into my working I'm not gonna close it now, just gotta wait till I get here and save it and not lose it by accident. So now I'm just gonna jump this to the top of my layer stack. You remember the keyboard shortcut I mentioned earlier, Control Shift right bracket key, and this is actually kind of cool too, like closer to the camera.
Out of frame, yes.
Actually, I kind of like that actually. Okay, see, like you get happy little accents, but anyway, we'll kind of stick to what we had before. So right about here, and then I'll flip it horizontally, and we could.
Yeah, I like that angle. Yep.
Could adjust.
Sorry. There was a question as to were you changing the softness of the brush as you were hiding different areas of the mask?
The answer to that question is yes, and I'm old school, so I'll use the bracket keys a lot. So let me show you what I was doing. So I'll just make this white so that you can see. So when I was painting, I use a bracket keys to like make a large brush, and then left bracket key to make a small brush. But then if you hold the shift key and use the right bracket key, you make a hard brush. Shift key, left bracket key, you make a soft brush. So yeah, so as I'm working, I'm using those keyboard shortcuts.
And do you have a special keyboard that you don't need to use 2 hands?
No, I have a regular keyboard. I don't have any of these those fancy keyboards.
Okay, because that's a lot of different keys to click on to get something done.
Yeah, it's I've been, like I said earlier, I've been doing it for 20 years. I have it on memory, which is why I don't use that new keyboard shortcut. I don't even remember it. The other one, like it's like the old key or something, I forget, to change the brush size or the hardness, just because I'm so used to doing it the old way.
Right.
But let me see, where are we at now? So at this point, I could start, just working more on the final composition of my design. I can close this layer because I don't need it anymore. And right around this point is where I like to just merge everything into a layer. Control Alt Shift E, and I call this final, so I can get an idea of what the final composite is going to look like.
Yes.
Convert it into a smart object so I can work non-destructively, and then go into filter, camera, raw, filter. And at this point, I can start thinking about, like maybe make it a little brighter, contrast, highlights, bring them down a bit, increase the texture, vibrance, which adds saturation to lowly saturated pixels. It protects skin tones and already highly saturated pixels. I can also
Wow.
increase the sharpening. So you can, when you drag the sharpening slider, you can kind of see what's happening, but it's difficult to see. If you hold Alt on Windows Option in the Mac and drag the masking slider, you can see what's happening here. So at 0, the sharpening effect is applied to the entire layer. But if I drag it to the right, Photoshop starts finding the edges. So now the areas with white are the only ones that will have the sharpening effect applied to it. And that's what I want. I don't want any sharpening in the clouds. It makes no sense, right? So just drag it as far right as you can, where you can still get the detail on your main subject, and adjust it accordingly. Also, when you're adjusting the sharpening, I would recommend viewing the image at 100% so you can get a good idea of what you're actually doing. Any other zoom level could be misrepresented. So I'm going to fit it in view. And what I'll do now is go into the color mixer, and the oranges are going to be her skin tones in the sand. So maybe I can make those darker a little bit, maybe decrease the saturation a bit, adjust it accordingly. I'll do the same thing for the yellows here. Just trying to get something that looks good to my eye. And obviously all this is subjective and you can change your mind.
This is a lot of awesome tips here. Thank you everybody in the chat. Thank you, Blizzard, for the question, and of course for the answer, Becca Smith. Yes, thank you for the answer. Some folks are keeping track of your tips and adding them to the Behance chat so we can all learn together. This is awesome.
Awesome. So I added a little bit of grain. I'm gonna add it now, and a little bit of a vignette, and you can see the difference already that this is making. I think I will also add, so the masking here, I'm going to create a linear gradient here in the bottom, like so, just to darken that up. That's where the branding is going to be placed. So I can bring down the exposure, make that a little darker. And you know what? Warm that up, bring the saturation down a little bit, decrease the texture, decrease the clarity, and decrease the sharpness to kind of like blur that in a little bit. And also I'm gonna, you know, like you should also name your mask, so I'll name it. Rename, instead of calling it mask, just call it like bottom, I don't know, darkening or whatever. As long as there's a name. And I'll create a new mask, and I'll call this one be a radial gradient. And I will just click and drag here on the right side. And that's where our light source is coming in from. So I should probably brighten that up just a little bit. And I can just call this like sun or something.
Yes.
And then on the other side here, it'll be darker. So I'll create a new, I guess I'll do a linear gradient for this. Maybe darken that up a little bit here on this side and bring that out like so. I don't know. We can change our mind later. And actually, you know what? For this one, I'll add a little bit of blue. And I'll call this one dark blue, and I'll call it top left. Yes. There we go. And on this one called sun, why not? Why don't we just add just a tiny little bit of yellow? Not so much, just a tad. I'll press OK. So that's my before and after. So see how big of a difference that made? So now I have an idea of where I'm going with this. So I can make decisions on the rest of the poster. So I'm going to disable this for now, and I'll work on my Jedi here. I'll create a folder, call it Jedi. Is she in there? Yeah, she's in there now. And, you know, I'm not so happy with the scale yet. So I gotta figure that out. But anyway, something like this. And what I will do now is work on her lighting. So I'll use a curves adjustment, clip it to the layer below, delete the mask because I don't need it. And she's obviously way too bright, so I can just, or I'm sorry, way too dark, so I can brighten her up like so. Here's a trick for you guys. I'm sure I've done this on Adobe Live before, but you can create a solid color adjustment, set it to close to 50% gray. It doesn't have to be right on the dot. 46% will work fine. Then create a hue and saturation adjustment layer, jack up the saturation, and obviously like nothing is happening. Well, on this adjustment layer or solid fill layer, set it to luminosity, and that's just going to change all the luminance values to 48% gray or whatever it is that I had. and you can see the colors that are in the image, and you can see that there's a lot of blue with her, but the sand is yellow, or orange. So if this is a real photo, the light will hit the sand and bounce up and hit her. So she should also have a little bit of a orange tint to her, and she doesn't. So let's add that in. So I'm gonna go into the selected color, click on the layer on the clipping mask, and under neutrals, I'm just gonna reduce the cyan to add a little bit of red and increase the yellow, and try to get that orange in there. Something like that. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that alone should make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So before and after, see that? And I think that really helps. And actually, I'm going to place this right below here, so that when we apply the brighten effect, it takes into consideration, that light. So see that?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
Let's see, what can we do next? Let's work on the lightsaber.
Somebody had mentioned lens flares. Lots of lens flares.
Lots of lens flares. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways which we can create this lightsaber. So what I can do is just, go into the rectangle tool and create something like this. Zoom in, and then just like click on that little icon, and then just round it like so. And
bam, bring it in.
Yeah.
Matthew was asking, couldn't you just use the horizon line again to adjust the Jedi size?
I can, but since her, let me try to say this with a few words as possible without confusing people. I could, but her horizon line is not necessarily, it's not perspective accurate, and I'm just trying to like make it work. So in that case, no. Her horizon line is not. Her horizon line is probably like a little bit higher. So I would need to bring her lower for her to like match. Even on this one here, if you really pay attention, you can kind of tell that the perspective is off a little bit. The more you pay attention, the more you'll see it. In reality, she probably needs to come down lower. But I didn't want to bring her down lower because I wanted her to have space for the identity here.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So sometimes
you have to make those sacrifices.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But if you spend enough time, maybe you can get it to work. I just couldn't get it to work in the time that I had. So I'm just gonna drag the pivot point there, drag this over like so. You can have this giant lightsaber.
And Mia, yes, you have to rewatch this. There's too much awesomeness to catch it in one sitting. That's correct. Your brain fills up too fast. At least my brain does.
So here I'm going to have to make some decisions. I'm probably going to just maybe drag this point over. Yes, I don't mind. There we go. Just trying to match the. And you know what? If you don't get it 100% perfect, that's okay. Yeah. And it's actually a little longer, but that's kind of cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this looks pretty okay. There we go. I mean, that's
yeah, I love anchor points. I love anchor points. Oh my god. Yes.
Well, you're an artist illustrator, so I'm sure you do.
Yes.
So now to make sure that the lightsaber, like the original one, doesn't like mess with anything I'm doing, I'm going to go into this smart object and create a layer mask. And I'm just going to hide the lightsaber. So once I fill this layer mask with black, it will disappear. And this will take its place. And I don't have to... I really don't have to worry too much about the masking. I can just bring this down to the layer below, and it just matches. And I can put these together, Jedi, and I don't even know how to spell lightsaber. Is it one word, lightsaber, like that? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah.
Cool. So what I'll do now is I'll double click on this rectangle, make that white, double click to the side of the layer, and do on outer glow. And I already have the one from when I was practicing the session earlier. Linear light is the blending mode. This is the blue that I chose, and I guess I should copy it for other purposes. And you can adjust the opacity and maybe even add a little bit of noise. Why not? I didn't do that earlier. You can also do an inner glow as well, so that you can so that it's not so sharp, you know, so that there's some glow inside there as well, and you know, adjust it accordingly, whatever looks good to your eye. And I'll double click on the hand tool to fit the image to screen. There's the lightsaber. The other thing I did in the final piece, and I don't think I saved the flare here. I have a lens flare graphic here. Did I call it? Did I just call it flare? I think the one that I use is this one here, and I just placed it on top of everything. Change the blending mode to screen. The screen blending mode hides black pixels, and it only keeps the brighter pixels. And I just kind of place that on top here.
Whoa.
Like so. Move the reference point to that area and scale by clicking and dragging on the corner handles while holding Alt and Shift, Option Shift on the Mac. That looks pretty cool. I want the light to be the same color. So image adjustments, hue and saturation, and I can adjust the hue till I get a similar
that blue.
Blue.
Yes. There you go, Daniel. You feel good now? It says Daniel said lens flares and rim lights, or it's not complete.
All right. So lens flare, there it is. And by the way, the reason that I created this final composite there is so now I can just press Control A to select all, Control Shift C to copy merge, and I can go into this final smart object and just paste the new one, close it, save it, and then Photoshop will apply those effects to the new one. See that? So maybe I probably went a little too far with the lightsaber here. Yeah, so maybe I need to bring that down a little bit. I will do that now. But I think
Frank says realistic neon effects is really hard to achieve on bright images. But yes, oh man, this is so nice.
Yeah, so I spent even here it's too much, right? So anyway, and actually I like the way I did the lightsaber on this one better than on this one here, in terms of the shape.
Yes, it does have that taper look to it.
Yeah,
I like that.
Cool. So let's see, what can we add now? Okay, so I don't need this group anymore, so I'm gonna get rid of it. I'm trying to show you guys a couple techniques that I would use on an actual project. So that the next thing that I would probably do is on my Jedi smart object here. There's a couple issues. If I probably should do it on this layer, actually. I think it's more obvious. If you zoom in, you'll notice that there's actually a lot of color noise. See how there's like a bunch of like little red and blue pixels? It shouldn't be that way. You can see it on the cape as well. There's a lot of the color noise. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Filter, camera raw filter.
Camera raw, we're back in.
And I'm gonna try to find an area where it's kind of visible, so we kind of see what we're doing here. So let's try that. If you go into the detail panel and here, color noise reduction, just drag it over to the right. And I know it's difficult to see, but you're getting rid of all those tiny little red and whatever other color pixels we had earlier.
How do you know it's selecting the red? What are you doing to make sure?
It's not selecting really the red. It's just Photoshop or Camera Raw knows that there's noise.
Oh, the
and
noise.
The noise is different color. So, you know, when you drag over, it kind of disappears. And I know it's not a big deal now, but the more effects that we apply on top of it, the more prominent they'll become. So I'm just trying to get rid of the problem before we even get there.
That's true.
So that works. And now that I'm here, I guess, now that I'm here, I guess I could also add some, I already added some sharpening. Great, cool. Great. Press OK. Oops, I completely did something wrong here. I don't know what I did. See what I don't know what I did, but you can see now the problem. See that? See how there's a lot of like color noise there? That's what I was trying to avoid. I must have done something wrong. I don't know what I did wrong, but let me see. You bring back some of that detail. Oh, color noise reduction. I thought I did. But see that? See how that went away now? So I'll do it. So this is before, after. See that?
Nice.
So that's what I was trying to remove, the color that's there. All those little color pixels, just trying to get rid of that. Cool. And the other thing that you can do to further enhance the detail on this image, and I guess what I'll do is I'll just, if you hold Control and Windows Command on the Mac, you can make a selection out of the active pixels of that layer.
Oh.
So I'll go to the very top and let me just copy these pixels. So I made a selection and I'm also copying those pixels and I can just paste them here. And the reason I'm doing that is so I can clip that to the layer below, Control Alt G on Windows, Command Option G on the Mac. And I'm going to go into Filter, Other, and select High Pass. High Pass is the opposite of the Gaussian blur filter. So the Gaussian blur filter blurs the edges essentially off of images. The High Pass keeps the edges. And you can see the edges of my image here and just set it to like a value where you can see the edges, but not that it's not so overblown that kind of looks like that. So I rarely tend to go past 3 pixels. Like that would be way too much. Usually I stay in the 2 to 1 range. So we'll do like 1.5 in this case, press OK. And then what you can do is change the blending mode to like linear light. And you can see how much that creates the illusion of more detail. Just to make it like super sharp. And then you can hold Alt on Windows, Option in the Mac, and click on the layer mask icon to create a black layer mask. And with the brush tool, you can paint with white and selectively bring back that detail in the areas that you think it requires it. So I see a lot of detail there, even on the lightsaber. Why not? Maybe definitely on her body here, like so.
You kind of you're separating the focus on the body and on the details. That's really good. So yes, Jesus. Sorry, Jesus is going kind of fast. He is super talented and amazing. So we suggest you follow Jesús Ramirez here on Behance and check out PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com for tons of these tips in a more easily editable bits and pieces, because Jesus is amazing.
Thank you. And yeah, this is recorded, so you can sit back, relax, watch the show, and then come back to it. So
that's right.
So you can always come back and see the replays. But anyway, so that's what I just did there. Just wanted to create that illusion of more detail. See the difference? And it just helps things look more, professional, so to speak. So we have our Jedi here. We have the lightsaber here. I guess I should put, well, actually I can't put the lightsaber and the Jedi on one group. There we go. There they are. What I'm going to do now is kind of work a little bit on the perspective. I'm not really happy. So we can come back into this layer here and we have, is this the beach here? Yeah. So I'm going to move the reference point right about there and kind of like scale this in maybe. And go back into the sand, wherever it is. Oh, by the way, so one of the reasons that it's a good idea to name your layers is if you have the move tool selected, you can right click anywhere on your canvas and you can see a drop down. So I can just select the sand, beach texture. There it is. So if I wanted to select this guy, I can go for Imperial Walker 1. There it is. Wow. Selected. So that's another reason why you should name your layers, so that you can easily access them. And I haven't been naming all of them, so sorry for that. So let me see what I can do here, because I'm trying to like also look at the scale and try to keep everything as realistic as possible. And
we got a question from Matthew. Jesus, any plans on going live soon on PTC?
Yeah, I'm actually I was actually thinking of doing basically the same poster tomorrow on my YouTube channel. So if you want to tune in for that, I may change it up a bit and work on it, because it's May 4th tomorrow. So I thought I would do something with this since I already have it. So let me see, bring that down, and I'm gonna put these into a group and then clip that into that. I'm still unhappy with the scale. I kind of like how it looks, but not the scale. So let me figure this out. And like this is really what I do when I'm working on these things. Like, just keep tinkering with these things until they work. Oh, I think I figured it out. So I'm gonna drag this one on top here instead, and then move this one up. Oh no, actually, that was good. And then I can just paint with black on this one here. There we go. Because I don't want that scale to like show that there's perspective. So something like that. And then on this one, I can paint with white down here. There we go. All right, I'm kind of liking that better. And what I'll do now, just to start getting more realistic with this, I'm going to go into my Jedi folder here. I'm going to create a layer mask. And I got to decide how her feet are going to be affected by the sand. So in this original one, what I did is I use the actual shape of the sand to kind of hide her feet. So I can kind of do the same thing in this case. It might not be the exact same spot, and I can definitely start moving the sand around so that I can find like a little mound or something that will hide that area. But I don't necessarily need to do that. Maybe I will. Why not? Let's see. Maybe. Oh, okay. So I have this one. Okay.
There you go. It's quicksand. It's moving. There you go.
We'll work with that.
Okay.
And the Jedi and lightsaber here, I can create a mask. Now I have a ton of brushes and I don't even know which one to use. So usually what I do is I kind of like start looking for something that just looks kind of rough. I cannot remember the one that I used for this on the actual composite that I just did it last night. I just forget. But I'm just looking for something here. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering about these brushes, if you click on this icon here, you can go into get more brushes. This will bring up an Adobe page and you'll see over 1,000 free brushes by Kyle Webster. And you can see that there's a bunch of free brushes you can get from Adobe. The one that I like for compositing is the one here, Concept. So you can just click on download and download these brushes for free. But there's a whole bunch of them. So that's actually what I'm looking through when I'm going through this particular area. And see, like for something like this, I usually just come and see if that works. No, I don't want random twigs. That's definitely not going to work. I felt like I found one super quick yesterday, and then now I can't even find it. But oh man, what I'm just gonna, just make one on my own. So like it's taking way too long. So what I'll do here is I'll select that brush and I'll just edit it. I'll just go into shape dynamics, adjust the size jitter. Maybe I'll even flatten it a little bit like so that I could also adjust the angle jitter. And I don't need to scatter it too much. So maybe a little bit. And then have a whole bunch. And maybe decrease the hardness just a tiny little bit. And that should work. So when I paint, okay, cool. That should work if I make it super, super tiny. And if not, I can go in there and adjust it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that works.
There you go.
See that how it's not giving me like a straight edge? That's what I want.
Sure, right. Yep. So you want to get that feeling of the grain of the sand,
right?
Instead of something that's super clean. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm using the Wacom tablet with pressure sensitivity. I probably shouldn't do that because I don't want to spend too much time painting. Oh, and my transfer. See, I have my transfer set to pressure sensitive, so I'm just gonna turn that off and then.
Then bam. Carol says, name the brush and the layer. Frank says, Lost in Kyle brushes set, story of my life. Yes. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you, Samantha. Welcome to the stream. And Wade has posted the link to Kyle T. Webster brushes. Download them, play with them, have fun. Look at that. Whoa, that's awesome.
Yeah. So see how it's not just like a smooth line, and that just helps with the realism. And I'm using the actual contour that's already there. So I think that really helps sell the effect more. Yeah. And oh my gosh, he's got look at these heels.
Yeah. That's another 3 inches. So I can finally be 6 feet tall. I'm cool with that.
So one of the comments I get the most when I go to a live event is, "Oh my God, I didn't realize you were so tall. I'm 6'2". So,
wow.
So at every event, it's like, "Oh, you look so much shorter on your videos," and I'm like, "How do I sit?"
Right. Yes, you know you get online and through video and pictures, you get a sense of what you think you're seeing till it's in real time, real life. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm gonna do now is inside of this group, I'm also gonna clip another layer to her, and I'll just call that sand shadow, and I'll zoom. So now we're at the point where I'm just like looking at these little tiny details, you know, that are important. But the point is that we already set the like the major pieces, and now it's just focusing on the small stuff. By the way, like I don't like to just paint with black. Shadows are not really black. They're whatever, you know, the color is and then darker. So I just select the color and then just make it darker. So like, you know, like this dark brown. And then I guess I can use the same brush. Actually, no, I shouldn't use the same brush. I'll use this brush and make it a bit harder. And when I paint, you know, that's the result there. And then I can just change the blending mode to multiply, which will darken it a bit more. And again, I'm going quickly here, but I think you guys get the idea. Just a nice little contact shadow. And a lot of times I just like to blur those shadows too, filter blur, Gaussian blur, and, you know, just blur them a bit more. I think it helps, and maybe even reduce the opacity a tiny bit.
Yep.
So before and after, and then do the same thing on the other side, you know, something like this.
It's hard to see it. Maybe the way my eyeballs are not as good. There it is. I see it now. Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of times when you're working, it's difficult to see, but then when you click on this eye icon, you're like, oh yeah, it makes a big difference.
Yes. All right.
So there we go. Another thing that we can do is, you know, the lightsaber is creating light. So let's add that highlight to her. So I'll create a layer, clip it to her. I can just call this highlight. I know I said I wouldn't name the layers. Let's have it now. And I'm going to try to use that same color that I used for the lightsaber. So is it inner glow or the outer glow? Is the outer glow, whatever color this is. I'll just copy it here. And then what I'll do is I'll just go in this highlight layer, and I'm just going to paint that color like on her. And actually, I will do that with this.
Ooh. And please share your Jedi name ideas for this character. We're getting close to the last 30 minutes of today's stream, and this Jedi needs to live on after today.
So now I'm trying to figure out which blending mode would be better for the highlight, and I think that linear light will probably be good. And linear light is one of the 8 blending modes that gives you different results when you reduce opacity compared to fill, and in my opinion, fill gives you better results. So I'll bring down
look at that,
to like 50%. That looks pretty good. Double click to the side of the layer, and I want this light to mainly affect the highlights, not so much the shadows. So on underlying layer, I'm going to click and drag the shadows over to the right, like so.
Whoa.
Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, click split these in half to create a smooth transition between visible and invisible pixels. And this looks pretty okay. And I'm just gonna paint. What I'll do is I'll paint the areas very loosely where I think that light will hit, right? It's not gonna be like perfect, but you know, I'm gonna be super loose, and you'll see why in a moment. So wherever I think that light hits, and it probably wouldn't hit back there, but that's okay. I'm being very loose here.
Sure.
So something like that. You know, we'll call that good. Then I can hold Alt on Windows, Option on the Mac, and click, hide that, and now I can be even more specific on the areas I want this to appear in, because I already like this is like 2 layers worth of targeting as opposed to just one. And maybe there'll probably be some there as well. Probably here some as well.
Micah says sweet. Felipe says wow. Kamini says that is so cool. Be Funky says I just made a composite today. Awesome. Make sure you share it on your Behance profile.
Yeah.
Nor is saying what's this magic? And Micah says learn something new. That's right. And Kamini says best tutor for Photoshop hands down. Thank you, Jesus. Oh my gosh. I agree with that. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. What you can do now is press Control-A on Windows, Command-A on the Mac, and make a selection around everything. Control-Shift-C to copy, and I can paste this in the final one just so that we can see what we've got. And you can see, like, you know, you kind of see like a little animation of how where we started, progressing, you know. Wow. And you can see how we're you know, slowly but surely getting closer to what we have here. How much time do we have? We have like
a good 20 minutes.
Okay. What I'll do now is I guess I'll work on the Stormtroopers. Maybe I won't add them all because there's other stuff I want to show. But the point is that we have. Oh, let's add this red guy. What is he called?
Is it an Imperial Guard?
I don't know where. I'm sure he doesn't belong here, but you know, he kind of looks kind of cool standing here. So I'm gonna place him there. And scale him. Oops, scale him. See, I didn't do that trick. I gotta click on that, and then I'm gonna make him bigger than everybody. I don't know if he's the same height or not, but in my world,
they usually guard the emperor. So
hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. It says that my Zoom quit. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen. We're still here.
Okay,
I'm still here. Yep. But I don't see your screen. I see you.
Okay.
So while we're working, Jesus has been creating a sci-fi movie poster in Photoshop. So please rewatch this session later to catch all the tips and share your Jedi name ideas for this character. We got a couple of great comments in the chat. Bra says this is getting bookmarked and rewatched in heavy rotation. Yes, Imperial Guard says Michael, that's right. Or the Boa Tarde is the name of these characters. Look at that.
Awesome. Anyway, there he is. You know, looking menacing. And you know what? We'll do the same thing we did with the other Stormtroopers, the bevel and emboss, to kind of, you know, imply that there's light coming through. Maybe change it to overlay in this case. See that? Now the light's hitting him on the right side. There we go. So
the red guard.
Before and after, you know, just those little details. Anyway, there he is. Oh yeah, we said Stormtrooper. So we have this guy here who's like about to shoot her. So, you know, we can figure out where and the scale and all of that. Maybe around there.
He's gonna miss.
He probably will. So I'm just gonna mask out his feet, you know, to make him look like he's just coming through. And you know, there'll be reflections and all that stuff too. Time is
there you go. Nice.
Is the problem here.
Yes, Adobe, we need 2 more hours, please.
At least
the rest of the schedule over. And Garrett has an idea for a name. Carmine for the name due to the red hair. There goes another name. So we got Bob, Carmine. Keep them coming.
So I'm just fading that brushstroke so that, you know, we can kind of see a little bit of his feet underwater, not too much. Cool. And also, I think Kyle has some brushes in there for like water ripples. Oh no, these are not Kyle's. These are another brush pack that I have, but I have these brushes that I use for my compositing that are basically just these little water ripples. And if I paint with white, you know, you get that effect there.
The reflection, yes. Daniel says character name Jola Bernuba Folina Esperanza Kenobi.
There we go. That works great.
That is good. Look, that's a cool stormtrooper right there. Moved up in the against the Jedi.
You know, and I'm just repeating basically the same process I did earlier, you know, by, you know, kind of removing the contrast a little bit, trying to match it better. I'm probably gonna add a little bit of blue to that, maybe remove the red to add cyan because of the water. Maybe he's getting some of that blue from the water. And, you know, he's probably too sharp and maybe a little too big, but I think we can live with that. Maybe just make him a little smaller.
Nor is saying, I'm imagining a mix of this poster with a Sharknado movie poster.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great. Also, I went online and I guess if I'm going to talk about it, I should show you. So I went to fonts.adobe.com. If you're not familiar with it, you should use it. But I have, let me see, I have a ton of images and I hope I saved it, but I saved like an actual logo. Oh, I didn't save it. Oh, that's silly of me. The actual Rogue logo for Rogue One. Let me see if I can find it.
Fonts.adobe.com.
Yeah, and you can search for you can search for like a, you know, like I think the one I used was like this one or something. But basically you can save you know, like whatever image you want, and then click on this search by image, and then you can find that image there, and Photoshop, or not Photoshop, I'm sorry, fonts.adobe.com will search the image, and there we go. Rogue One. Click on next step. There it is. Actually, well, I don't know why I created those extra spaces, but Rogue One. There it is. Great. Click on next, and it tells you which Adobe fonts are similar or the same to the ones that you selected. So this one here, Trajan Pro 3, looks pretty much like the Rogue One logo. So that's what I use. So I, you know, in the type tool here, I selected that and then just typed in Rogue. If I didn't spell it correctly, Rogue. And I called mine 2. And actually the spacing is all off on that one, but you know, you can,
yes, there you go.
You can come in here and, you know, place that into position down here. I'm not going to take the time to do that. I just wanted to show you how I found the logo, and you know, just type it in. Yeah. What I'm going to do instead is just bring the one from this image, and it's just a group, and I'll show you what the group is. That way there are no surprises. But basically, as you saw, it's the same Trajan Pro 3 font. And then I have 2 vector lines that create the top and bottom part. And then for the word ontology, I use Proxima Nova and ontology there at the bottom. Okay. This group is titled Logo. And I just found a good spot, you know, in my poster to place it in. And I actually placed this above the final because the logo shouldn't be affected by all the effects. Right. So what I would do at this point is, you know, press Control-A to select all, Control-Shift-C to copy all, paste that in here, close it, save it, and you can see the updated version, and you can see the type there. There's a couple of more things I want to show you guys. Before I forget, I do want to mention one thing, because I know that if I don't mention it now, I will forget. After you're done with Adobe Live for the day, I recommend checking out the Photoshop Summit. It's going on this week, Photoshop Summit 4. I'm one of the presenters. It's free to watch live, and then there's an option for purchasing the recordings. But a couple other Adobe Live instructors are there, like my good friend Aaron Nace, Lisa Carney that we spoke about earlier, Matt Plaskowski. I'm not sure if Julianne or Colin Smith have done Adobe Live, but they're also people that are recognized, and I'll share the link in the chat if you want to learn more about Photoshop, more about Blend If, and all the things that I've been discussing I talk about in my session. Actually, one of my sessions is today. I think it's happening like in an hour or something like that.
Carol says your video is on now.
Oh, there you go. My video's on
now.
It's
on now, so you can watch Jesus.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so if you have two monitors, make sure that you watch me here and you watch me at the Photoshop Summit. So I just wanted to let people know about that. Cool. Let me see. All right, so let me look at my original one. And so another thing that I added to my original one that I completely forgot about is the birds. I have some birds to show you guys. So if you go into the brush tool here, and this one is in fact from Kyle's brushes, I believe. If I type in bird in the search, yeah, so Kyle does have some birds. I think the one that I use is maybe this one. Let me see. I'll create a new layer just to see. Yeah. So there's some birds here, but for some reason, the dual brush is enabled, and I don't really like the dual brush. So I'll disable that. And then, you can just paint your birds in. And what I like to do is select the color of the sky, and actually not that color, this color. Select the color of the sky, maybe make it a little bit darker, like so. And those are my birds. And now I can just scale them into position. So maybe these birds are frightened that there's this giant thing coming through. So now I have my birds right there. Just
they're clearing the way. Wow.
Yeah. So, just adding those little details. Also, I would probably go, you know what? Something I didn't do that it's very important, and I'm glad I remembered, is with this Jedi, and you should do it with the Stormtroopers as well. You kind of saw me use the bevel and emboss to create shadows and highlights. And that works great for something that's so far away that doesn't really require much detail. But for something like the Jedi, I would definitely recommend adding dodge and burn layers. So I'll create a curves adjustment layer just above here, and I'll call it burn, which means making it darker. So I can just click and drag this down and just make that darker like so. And then I can press Control-I to invert, and I can now paint with white to reveal that dodging and birding. Not with the birds brush though, just with a regular.
It would have been cool to have a bird pattern.
Pattern. Yeah, definitely.
And are you gonna add a shadow on the sand?
Yes.
Cast shadow. Okay.
That's also on the final one, and I haven't added it there. But anyway, so now, yeah, no problem. Thank you for reminding me. So you can just decide where the shadows would be, and obviously this will take some time to really get it right. But we're going quickly here.
Yeah, this is a 2-hour brain mash on Adobe Photoshop.
Right, and it's not only not a lot of time, but you're also talking and explaining things, so that kind of makes things a little slower. So this is my dodge layer, and I can just paint with white to create those highlights. Yeah. And the advantage of doing it this way, as opposed to other techniques of using a 50% gray layer and then use the dodge and burn tools, is that you can always change the intensity, right? So like, see that? So you have some flexibility. And if you want to be super fancy, I'm not going to do this, but like you can add color, right? You can just add yellow to it if you want, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
so it just
look green.
Yeah. So before and after, and obviously spend more time, figuring out where the highlights and shadows would be in this scene. That way you get something that looks realistic or as close to possible. A lot of times it doesn't even need to look realistic. It needs to look right,
Right.
Sometimes something that looks real doesn't look right. There we go. So these two, let me show you, these two layers enabled make that. So it just kind of helps it all come into the scene a bit more. Let me see. You were talking about the shadow, right? So something that you can do for the shadow is select the main subject here by holding Control and Windows, Command and the Mac, and clicking on the layer mask. No, I'm sorry, not the layer mask. Clicking on the layer thumbnail, and it loads it as a selection. Then you can create a layer underneath her and fill it with like a really dark brown, something like that. And then I can press Control T, Command T to transform, select distort, and you can distort this.
There we go.
However you want. And it's going to need a little bit of work, but that's okay. There we go. That's good for now. And I can now bring this out like so. That looks pretty good. And obviously I don't think the lightsaber would cast a shadow.
Right.
It's light.
There you go.
And then what I'll do here is I'll probably select this area like so, Control T to transform, warp it, and maybe I can just warp this so that it like goes to there. And I'm not sure why it's hiding that. Oh, because it's part of that group, I believe. So if I just drag it out of the group, there we go.
It was getting caught up in the sand. Nice. We got about a good 10 minutes left, and just letting you know. That looks good.
Cool. Thanks. And then, for these areas, I can just select this color here and then just kind of paint that in. And you don't have to be very precise because it's a shadow. It's going to be blurred. So like, it's okay if it's got like a few imperfections, and the shadow is not perfect to begin with. So cool. So then I can go into filter, blur, Gaussian blur, and figure out, how much blur my shadow will have. Change the blending mode to multiply, bring the opacity down, try to figure out what the darkest point of my shadow would be, and then create a layer mask and
gradient. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then, you can decide how you want your mask. Still not 100% sure.
There you go.
I mean, we'll call that good for now. I can spend all day trying to
I like that.
Figure out how that shadow would look. And I'm not happy with how like skinny her legs look. So I could probably come in here and with the I forget the name of this tool, the smudge tool. You can come in and just kind of like, I don't know, make them thicker or whatever. Yeah. And since the shadow's going over sand, you can probably get artistic here and figure out how it would look on the contours of the sand. You can do a displacement map if you want, but that's probably too much work for this. But this displacement map will surely work.
What's super cool is everything you're showing us today is you trying to keep order in the layers so that you can always come back and make edits and changes. And and it's beautiful to see the work that goes into it. It's crazy that when people see the final work, they don't know how hard you went on making all of these things look like this is an actual scene that happened in real life.
Right. It takes a lot of time.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yes.
So, and what I would do in this case is I would probably put this layer. I would probably put all this together, and I don't know what's controlling that group, but yeah, there we go. Jedi, Lightsaber, and Shadow or something like that. So I know what's in there. So
we got a few more minutes for your names. So far, we got Bob, Carmine, Ezekiel, Hola, Bernuba, Folina, Esperanza, Kenobi. Any other names for this Jedi character? Let us know.
There we go. And also, like, something I should mention now is with hair, because I know some people are going to be talking about it. Like I masked out all her hair. There's no way I'm going to be able to get her hair masked properly with such fine hair that she has. So what I can do is on here I can create a new layer, call it hair, and I have a hairbrush that I use. I think it's called Strand. Yeah, hair strands. This one, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, no, it's not that one. It's one of these. Oops, strand. Maybe this one. Is it this one? Nope, not that one. I need to better name my brushes. Strand. This one. Yeah, that's the one. So it's just a strand brush, and what you can do is hold Alt and Windows Option in the Mac and click to select, the color of her hair. Let me make sure this is off. Yeah, that's off. And I can just paint hair with this brush. Just kind of. And I'm just holding Alt and selecting that color, and I'm going quickly here, but you get the idea. These little hair strands are just flyaway hairs, you can paint in rather than masking them, because it'll take forever and you probably will never do it. And then a lot of times, like here, you can kind of see how there's hair that's actually going into her neck. You can kind of try to match the flow. I know there's one like right here by her ear. I'm gonna try to match. I didn't do that good of a job in that case, but you get the idea. I sometimes, try a couple of times until I get it to match. Because that hair is already there, so I might as well take advantage of it. And I could just come in here and, just find these strands to make the composite work. Yeah. But obviously, this takes some time, and I think you said we have like 2 minutes or something.
Yeah, we got 5 minutes or so. And another name suggestion was Gin Drinko. I don't know how I feel about that one.
Yeah. So which ones do you like right now so far?
So of course Bob. Yeah, Bob. And
Jedi Bob.
Jedi Bob, and she's going up against a whole fleet of Stormtroopers, AT-AT walkers, a Death Star, and a Star Destroyer.
Right.
Jedi Bob, says Francisco. That's right. And Felipe is asking, where did we get that brush? And Becca says hairbrush, and she's laughing. So where did we get that brush? That was part of the list.
To be honest, I'm not sure. That's not one of the towel brushes. I don't know if he has a brush, a hairbrush in there. And I've downloaded so many brushes over the years that I'm not exactly sure where that particular one came from. But I'm sure you can look up like hair strand on YouTube and on Google and find one. But I don't know specifically where I got that one from. And yeah, that's what it looks like once you've applied it to the final piece. See that? It kind of just helps it look a little more realistic. And that's what I was talking. I was trying to match that one hair that was already coming out. Some people would have removed it, and that's fine, and just having no flyaway hair, that like big one. But I don't know. I kind of like it because it's kind of weird. Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, as you can see, we're not too far away from this one. Obviously that one spend a little more time on this one. One thing that I didn't do here, and I use the same technique as I use on the pants, is get the highlight on the sand. I got a little bit here as well. Okay. So I didn't we're not going to have time to do that, but you can definitely use the same technique I use on the pants, but do it on the sand.
Well, make sure that everybody gets a chance to follow Jesus Ramirez on PhotoshopTrainingChannel.com. He has a YouTube channel with lots of tutorials. Make sure you follow those, and stick around. We got a little bit of a few more minutes if you want. Go ahead.
Oh no, so Photoshop Training Channel is the YouTube channel. Also, if you want shorter tutorials, you can follow me at TikTok, JR from PTC. And here's this is actually a composite I did on Adobe Live. I want to say about last year or something like that. So if you want to look at more Photoshop compositing tips and tricks, check out my YouTube channel and TikTok. And this is something I did here on Adobe Live about a year ago.
Awesome. Look at that. TikTok, JR from PTC.
JR from PTC, that's right.
Nice. Wow. Cool. Nice. And make sure you stick around for the second week of Illustrator Creative Challenges with Julia Vaca, immediately followed by a very special guest, Jay Schuster, who work in concept art for the Star Wars prequels. Join the stream as he works on Star Wars inspired illustrations in Adobe Fresco. And don't forget, there's a ton of streams happening this week related to Star Wars, sci-fi, including Odari, whom you have seen here on Behance. You've seen his portfolio on the Behance Live, and myself, who streams on Mondays and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we got a lot of Star Wars artwork coming your way. And just to answer someone's question was about how to bookmark this video. Just check out the live streams tab on Behance, and any upcoming live streams will be featured on that page, including and any live streams in the past few days, they will be listed in their own category. So make sure you go back and rewatch some of these amazing tutorials and video demos. And thank you, Jesus. Any last words you'd like to share with everyone else? Anyone else? We got a few more minutes.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Photoshop Training Channel is the website and the YouTube channel. So any questions or comments, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. I appreciate your time today. Thank you, Matthew, Micah, Wade, Jesse, Mia, Motor Void. Thank you all for being here. Carol, and your comments, questions, suggestions. Gareth. I guess we're going with Jedi Bob.
Jedi Bob. I love it. Jedi Bob. It's even funnier because she's a lady, so Jedi Bob.
Right. Okay, well, thank you very much, Jesus. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Stay tuned for more. And I'd love to see your artwork. Upload your artwork to Behance. Behance is an amazing platform to run your portfolio, so do it.